Your lecture is the 32nd lecture. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, people from all over the place. It's my great pleasure to introduce my colleague and friend, Professor Gaetano Cascini. He's a mechanical engineer with a PhD in machine design and a full professor at Politecnico di Milano. His research interests cover methods and technologies supporting design creativity and innovation, as well as design cognition and its experimental investigation. He's the co-editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Design Creativity and Innovation and an associate editor of AI EDAM, Artificial Intelligence for Engineering Design, Analysis and Manufacturing, and Design Science. He's also currently the president of Design Society, and last talk, as you may know, Chris McMahon was the first president of the Design Society. Now we have the latest president of the Design Society in our forum. He coordinated the European projects, format, forecast, and road mapping for manufacturing technologies, Spark, spatial augmented reality as a key for creativity, and OIPEC, Open Innovation Platform for University Enterprise Collaboration, and has co-authored more than 150 articles and has 14 patents. It's a great pleasure to have Gaetano to be giving a presentation. So with that, I will open the hand over the mic to Professor Gaetano Cascini to start the lecture. Thank you, Gaetano.
Thank you, Sub. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session and, of course, generally speaking, for organizing this series of lectures that
increase the volume from Professor Gaetano.
I can hear some voice in the background. Well, again, I was very happy to receive the invitation from Sub. It was already several times we were discussing about the topic I'm going to address and other related ones. And so, I mean, it is a nice opportunity for me to share some experiences that somehow combine the experience or a particular experience I have in design education, but also with some reflections that derive from research activities on the topic. So I'm also very glad that Sub made such a nice kind introduction so that I can really speed up the thing. Maybe the only few things I will add just for your curiosity, I was, let me use this one, which make the point easy. So I was born in the south of Italy. I grew up in the center of Italy, Florence. Maybe several of you know it. And then I moved to Milano for my professorship. So somehow, I mean, I try to combine the flavors of the different regions of Italy and just I mean, as you can imagine, it changes quite a lot. But I mean, again, it's so nice to combine different cultures. And this is somehow related to the topic I'm going to present today. I will skip all this general blah blah, which is related to my activity that Sue kindly presented. Maybe just a few words, because it will be relevant for the course I'm going to talk about. A few words about Politecnico di Milano. Politecnico di Milano is a technical school, meaning that we only have schools of architecture, design, and all branches of engineering. We don't have other disciplines. But in those disciplines, in those technical disciplines, we are the largest technical university in Italy, that top ranked, not just in among the technical university, and quite a number of students. If you think that 40% of Italian designers graduate in Milano, and by the way, even if you count the engineers, 18% of engineers graduate in Milano. now. So I mean, quite an impact in this sense. Uh, well, okay, again, just to give you an idea about numbers, nowadays we have some 49,000 students, if you sum up master and bachelor, and roughly 1,600 lecturers involved, among of them, 1/4 are full professors. Politecnico di Milano, of course, is connected in several networks of universities, at least at European level. The most acknowledged ones are Idea League, where we are together with other universities you certainly know well, like ETH or Delft University, and I mean other networks. And in these networks, what we do is to let me say combine courses, combine PhD supervisions, combine also some summer schools, specific educational initiatives. And in fact, with this in mind, among the other networks, the Enhance network is a network of universities where we are building what we would like to call it a sort of European university, where you are not making what we call Erasmus exchanges, so mobility exchanges of students, but students will be free to choose their curriculum, picking courses from all the different universities, and it will deliver one single degree. It is still a kind of dream, but we are working in that direction. Of course, education is part of the story. Then there is research. Politecnico di Milano is quite well performing in terms of attracting funds, both from funding institutions and from companies. Sometimes, but this is a secret among me and you, we, let me say, we give even too much importance to interaction with companies meant as focusing on relatively short-term requests. But on the other hand, this also means that there is a strong focus of our research and educational activities on something that has the chance to have an actual impact in the society. And again, I'm making all those references because it will be somehow meaningful later. Then Politecnico di Milano overall counts 12 departments, one of which is the mechanical engineering department, which is, I mean, medium size compared to others. And in this department, there are 6 research groups, one of which is mine, which is devoted to methods and tools for product design, with 2 main let me say research streams, one more on virtual prototyping and product design, and another one on product lifecycle management. All right, so that said, I would like to let me say organize my speech divided into 4 main chapters. The introduction of the Alta Scuola Politecnica model, which is the kind of special, peculiar initiative, educational initiative that I would like to share with you today. I will enter into somehow in further detail on the specific approach to teaching design methods and processes within Alta Scuola. Then I will move from a description of the educational structure of this initiative into an empirical study we made, having the ASP, the Alta Scuola Politecnica students, as subjects, or at least part of the subjects, and what we derived in terms of teamwork quality in project-based learning, and some findings that might be relevant not just for educational purposes, but also for some reflections on what design methods, tools, approaches should consider in their development. And this will be the start for the conclusions. Feel free, if you would like to get any clarification, also to stop me during the presentation without waiting until the end. I mean, I think that this might be more effective to clarify all and solve all doubts up front. But then, I mean, it will be a pleasure to have some discussion at the end. All right, so let me start with an introduction to this Alta Scuola Politecnica model. First of all, Alta Scuola Politecnica is an initiative that is, was created jointly by Politecnico di Milano and Politecnico di Torino, that together represent the two biggest, oldest technical schools in Italy. Let me say, they are somehow a reference for the technical education and research in Italy. How did we start? Well, we started about 20 years ago, and the idea was to build a special track in parallel to the master degree courses of any kind that the two Politecnico deliver. So I think that, I mean, at least you are aware of the kind of the kind of credit system, educational credit system we have in Europe. Normally, a master degree counts 120 credits, 60 credits per year. This Alta Scuola program is an extra 30 credits curriculum that runs in parallel to the master degree. How many students? It is highly limited. I mean, I mentioned already that Polimi counts 49,000 students, among of them, let's say that roughly 20,000 are master degree students. And Politecnico di Torino is slightly smaller, but still they have some 13,000 students. So we're talking about 150 out of, in principle, 30,000, if they all were interested in the program, of course. So it is a very limited selection. It is a program which does not deliver extra specialistic competencies, but rather it emphasizes horizontal skills. It tries to develop the ability to manage complexity, to work in teams, to face with challenges which are, let me say, typically not possible to address by a person individually or by a team with one background only, with one, let me say, single discipline involved. As I mentioned, we are, let me see, almost celebrating the 20th anniversary, and the program requires 2 years of commitment by the students. Among the others, the Alta Scuola is based on the delivery of courses and the organization of projects, because as I mentioned, the program is conceptually based on project-based learning, even though there are some standard courses delivered there. And even more, the project-based is, you will see some descriptions of project types, is largely based on developing problem setting competencies with very complex and ill-defined situations, rather than just on the development of the specific solution. Another point of Alta Scuola is that even though we welcome that Alta Scuola graduated students afterwards enter our doctoral school, so they might start a research career, we normally highlight that this program is not meant to develop researchers, but it's meant to develop people with a strong interest and commitment towards innovation, toward having an impact in the society, which is, of course, not necessarily based on research. It could be based on other sorts of competencies. Sorry that I don't have more recent figures, but I think that this is quite representative of the mix of students because it is relatively stable. You see that we have some 50 to 60% of architects. We have all sorts of engineering divided between management, industrial, civil engineering, and let me say, these numbers are somehow stable let me say, even in the 8 cycles that followed these ones, because we just started the 20th cycle. As well as students come from all over the world. Here are some example flags to remember from where they come, but actually they are really international, with a percentage of about 20%. I mean, 20 is the minimum number of foreign students we try to collect. Now, let me provide you with some more details about the structure of the entire Alta Scuola program. So the Alta Scuola program, after the opening, starts with a number of courses, and right after the beginning of the first 2 courses, the project, which is a project to be developed in more than 1 year, is also started before the graduation. More precisely, here it is. More precisely, if you consider the typical 2 years timeline of a master degree program, they enter the Alta Scuola, let me say, after a few months of the start of the master degree. And after they started the master degree, at the beginning, they get in contact with 2 courses of the 4 mandatory courses that they have to attend. Once they have started those 2 courses, then they also are involved in the ASP project, which is a project lasting for about 1 year. Eventually, they need to collect credits by 4 courses and by the ASP project, which is developed before the graduation, both in the master degree program and according to the ASP, Alta Scuola project program. Now, in the next slides, I will focus first into providing you a few details more about what do we mean with courses, given the kind of introduction I presented to you. So what is the kind of content we'd like to deliver to these students? Second, I will spend a few words more on the structure and content of the project, and then I will focus on one of the courses, which is the one that devoted to design methods and processes that, I mean, of course, being responsible, I can explain you more what's the logic behind and what sort of initiative we have developed there. All right, so the courses. I mean, students here are coming from different backgrounds, quite different backgrounds. And we want to develop, as I mentioned, not more specialistic skills or competencies, but rather the ability to deal with complex, ill-defined problems, often open-ended and typically rather complex. So the courses are meant to provide a kind of backbone of methods, tools, models, reference models that should guide the students in the key activities that they will have to face with in their project, ASP project. I mentioned we have 4 courses. Typically, 3 of these courses are stable. Stable means that they are repeated every year with all due updates, but I mean, essentially they are repeated every year. One is on innovation and impacts on society. One is about complex system design, and another one is about decision making in complex situations. Then the 4th course is on a topic which changes on a yearly basis, and it is typically on some hot topics which are emerging as particularly relevant. So how do we position these courses? Well, let me make it a bit simplistic, but just to give you an idea. Assuming that we have two dimensions, one related to the goals of a certain activity that could be shared goals or a kind of conflict or at least not agreed upon, and another dimension related to technologies or solutions, one related to known solutions and another one with unknown solutions still to develop. Well, given this kind of framework, what we normally say is that students come from master degree program where they are taught how to address design problems dealing with the domain where typically, maybe not always, but typically, the goals are defined, or at least there are no conflicts there, and the solutions could be adapted, could be optimized, but typically they already exist. So this is what they learn out of the Alta Scuola. The ambition is to cover the other three quadrants here. So in this sense, the first school, the first winter school, the first they meet, is meant to develop their competencies on innovation models, innovation dynamics, in an interdisciplinary setting, where, by the way, the goals are somehow defined, and it is a matter of exploring the different alternative solutions, understanding, or technologies, understanding what might fit better. For several of you, the coordinator of this course might be a known person, Professor Marco Cantamessa from Politecnico di Torino. Marco, I mean, in the design community is also a well-known person, one of the founding members of the Design Society, by the way. And he works on the borderline between design and management. So this is the kind of content that he delivers to the students in the first course. Then, on the other side of the framework of this bidimensional space, there is the course that they attend as, and the students attend as actually third course, typically in the summer at the end of the first year. And it is, I mean, on the other side, because what I mean here is that they assume that they are working only with known solutions, but in a situation where different stakeholders might have different priorities or even conflicting interests. So in this course, they learn what does it mean performing negotiations, what does it mean to managing conflicts and support decision making. And well, the teachers of this course have been changed recently, but the overall logic is this one. So just to say that there is a stable objective to provide our students with some references on decision making and with some adaptation on the course. So this slide should be somehow updated, but the overall goal is the same. The third course that somehow represents the backbone of the courses we deliver to the students is the design methods and process. And let me say, in principle, what we try to do in this course is to let students reflect on what does it mean exploring a space, the design space, where both the goals and the solutions shall be defined, so that they have full responsibility of exploring the different directions, what is requested, how to address, how to also update the goals based on the needs that they perceive the stakeholders have. And among the others, clearly, I mean, since we are dealing with students that come from rather different backgrounds, what we need to do here is to give them a common vocabulary on design methods, because architects, designers, engineers don't really address design in the same manner. So this is the overall picture. As I mentioned, there is also a fourth course, which it changes every year. So, for instance, one of the last years, it was New Frontiers in Data Science for Innovation, because there was the data movement emerging. Well, let me make it short here to go move to the project of the Alta Scuola.
Before you go, can I ask you a question?
Of course, of course, of
The
course.
question I have is, you have the regular program, and then you have this Alta Scuola, which is runs parallel, right?
Yeah,
Students do both the masters and the Alta Scuola, and they
yeah.
also do the summer school and winter school.
They in order to be admitted and kept in the Alta Scuola, they must not only be enrolled in a master degree, but they also must be very proficient in their master degree courses,
Okay.
because they need to be in line with the exams with a grade which is quite high.
Okay.
So this is, but what they, so this is just extra, it is not in substitution.
Okay.
But what they, among the benefits they provide them is, and I will provide also more details afterwards, we waive their tuition fees. We
Mhm.
pay all their expenses when they move to the schools, travel, accommodation. I mean, we really try to say, okay, you don't need to, let me say, for instance, focus on some part-time jobs to pay your studies. You need to develop your competencies, and the rest is somehow provided to you.
Thank you.
So the number are small, but we try to take care of them.
Mm.
All right. So about the project, I mean, are actually the core of the Alta Scuola program. We want that they learn through the project. The courses are just aimed at giving them the scaffold to work in projects. Projects should be definitely multidisciplinary, should be sufficiently high level to require a holistic approach, and they can be quite different in nature with some common points. Among the common points is that projects come from an external organization. It can be a company, it can be a public administration, it can be, I mean, any organization that has some challenges to offer. And we ask them, the organizations, to involve at the very least one external tutor committed to provide information to the students. Then tutors. Tutors should be from both Politecnico di Milano and Politecnico di Torino, from at least two different disciplines, so that we know that we can provide co-tutoring, a co-supervision, which comes from the expert in the field, from the expert from at least the two disciplines in academia. And the team, of course, of students that should be multidisciplinary in nature, and on average they count 6 to 8 students, which is a relatively large number, but I mean it is related to the complexity of the task they have to face with. Overall, again, I will already mention the project can be quite different in nature, but the let me say we can roughly classify them in two branches. Some of them come with a technology or research driven perspective. What does it mean? That there is some outcome of the research in the laboratories in university or in some companies, and there is a request to understand how to develop those, how to exploit those outcomes into some products or services that that aims at having a significant impact in terms of innovation in the society. So it is a matter of understanding what might really be the interest in the society to adopt that research achievements, and what are the constraints there, what are the different interests, what might be the barrier against adoption, and so forth. On the other hand, there are some more design driven, I would say. So in that case, there is a challenge that we don't really know what the solution could be. And in that case, they start, of course, from the exploration of what is really needed, and then they will look for technologies or solutions that might address that challenge. So it comes from more typically from a request from the society. Each team has a budget, not too big to be honest, but it allows them to cover costs related to moving from Milano to Torino when they want to meet face to face rather than online, to participate by their choice into conferences or seminars they find them interesting, and they can even spend that money for books, prototypes, other relevant things, as far as we say somehow contributing to the project. And well, you can imagine being, let me say, of course, expert in design, that typically they need to have a clear picture of the state of the art. They need to understand what the different stakeholders are and what are their requirements, and arrive to some solution which has been properly assessed in terms of feasibility, in terms of let me say, technical, economical, environmental issues that it might address, and so forth. It is interesting, let me incidentally mention that this kind of activity, of course, it takes time. I mean, if you compare the amount of time we spend for handling this project against the typical projects in standard courses, these require way more time. However, there is, I would say, a positive impact, not just on, let me say, the development of the competencies of the students, but also in terms of relationship. I mean, being a very selected and well-prepared students, typically the partners we deal with, either public institutions or companies, they really appreciate the activity. I mean, they really find useful these kind of interactions. And often the students also bring visibility to Politecnico di Milano and Torino because they participate in exhibitions, they present publications. Some of them also end up with patents and startups creation. So, I mean, again, it is a kind of investment, but it is also rewarding in a sense. Well, of course, these are examples of organizations that propose projects, but maybe more interesting to see few of the last projects that were presented, I mean, arrive at the end, not that were just proposed. So, as I mentioned, there are some of them that are more technology driven, or they start from the output of a research activity, as this one here, where there was already some achievements from research projects related to say, rehabilitation of the upper limb and hand I mean, through laboratory tests and developments, and from there to make it evolve into something which is a product service that could not only support but also let me say, introduce new forms of monitoring of users, of patients. These, of course, implied an adaptation of the technology, but also a way better understanding of what is the context, what could be the dynamic for making this system possible to adopt. And again, being a product service, it was not just the gadget as it is, but the infrastructure behind. So this clearly implies involvement of perspective of different disciplines. Just to mention, another let me say another sort of project which comes instead from a challenge outside. The A22 is one of the motorways in Italy, in the northeast of Italy, and in this case, they had some requests for, let me say, to introduce new service areas that should, of course, be compliant with the environment of the highway, and at the same time with several technical requests, and it should be viable from an economic perspective and so forth. So in this case, there was a request which is at the beginning not really technical, but it is quite from a large perspective, and then it was translated into the different and even conflicting requests from the local administrations, from the authority managing the transportation infrastructure by the users and customers of the infrastructure and so forth. So this is just to give you an idea on what sort of project they deal with. Now, moving definitely faster, a few details more on what we try to deliver in the design methods and process course, so the one I'm responsible for. So essentially, it is interesting to notice as a starting point that for the first 7 cycles, design was not even a topic. It was not even a course in this Alta Scuola. I mean, in principle, I'm sure that you think that a project, an Alta Scuola project with this kind of ambition should have design among its core subjects. But the wrong assumption was that engineering, architecture, and design students already can design by themselves, which is, I would say, globally wrong, or better. It is possible that they can design something within their own discipline, with design students probably more prepared for a kind of more fancy situation, but it is definitely wrong to assume that engineers can design if they only have a very specific background. And in any case, they are not able to really interact. So for this reason, we developed a module which counts on lectures, which counts on tutorials, which counts on practice in team, in preparation of the actual project activity, and that is the one that I just described. So lectures, unfortunately, we have budget for inviting colleagues well known in the society. I mean, I can't remember who the previous speakers were, but I guess that you already met Pascal Lemasson, Yoram Reich, here John Giro, and several others. So when the course is organized in one residential week, kind of summer school, actually if it's a spring school, lectures typically are delivered in the morning. Recently, we are also making some other pilot experiences with different arrangement, but I will stay with this scheme, which is more stable so far. So the lectures deliver typically 2 kind of content. Either some general knowledge on what design is, what a design process is about, what are the common elements in a design activity, whatever the background is of the participants. I mean, if somehow, despite the differences, a design process in architecture, design, and engineering, they share several common things, and so we like to deliver this kind of content and sensibility. And what role can design theory play in this perspective? Other lectures are more related to discussions on very peculiar design contexts, where all the things we are mentioning become very, very relevant. For instance, game design I find it extremely interesting, because game design involves a lot of human, especially video game design, human factors and technical skills. It is a matter of putting together emotional issues and very complex and highly technological solutions. So, and I mean, as my colleague Pierluca Lanzi says, I can force you to do anything rather, but not enjoying a game. And that's the point. So it is really a hard design task. Or another one related to designing for human space flight and exploration, which is, of course, also another very peculiar environment where many things are put together. And well, this is just a view on some of the lectures in these years. And well, you mentioned Chris McMahon. Also, Chris was involved in some editions of the school, just to mention. I will speed up. I won't spend many words on design experience. What is this? Is the invitation of students to share some projects of their previous studies, so when they were undergraduate. And the reason here, maybe worth discussing afterwards, that what I like is that they present something that they developed before the Alta Scuola. And typically, of course, based on their different background, they go from mechanical engineering projects to app to some design things and so forth. And the nice point is to make them present and then spend time with them finding points of contact and not the differences. And I find this practice very, very useful. If you're curious, we can discuss this further. Then we have tutorials. What do we mean with tutorials? Since we want to provide them with some guidance on how to address the project, the tutorial is meant to provide them not the best tool to accomplish a certain design activity, but rather an example on how to guide a design activity with some prescriptive model that could be a reference for those who were never informed about the existence of such sorts of tools or models. So just to clarify with a few examples, the tutorial are one about how to organize competencies in a team. I mean, you have team with multiple competencies, different backgrounds, how to organize the work so that you can really collaborate properly. Another one is about how to perform a design task clarification. So how to try to move from a very ill-defined situation to a proper identification of the stakeholders, what are their needs, how to formulate those needs into some sort of requirements, and how to clarify better the situation. The third one, of course, is about framing the problem emerged from the task clarification and supporting idea generation with some stimuli, and eventually something related to putting together the different ideas generated and assessing them to make a choice on what is the concept that they want to propose at the end. Again, this is just a simple backbone that they could use in the following activity of the Alta Scuola project. And so this is how overall the residential week appears in the end, with a lot of team working activity and of course some discussion together in plenary session to give them some say feedback. All right, now I would spend the last 10 minutes, possibly less, to an empirical study we made involving also Alta Scuola students that might provide some reflection points. Sorry for the interruption. So what is the background? Well, of this study? Well, we just started from the consideration that designing is become a very complex activity, especially when we are addressing challenges that more and more are becoming let me say, the strongest point of attention of the entire society. It is almost everywhere acknowledged that multidisciplinary collaboration is the solution to address those challenges. But we tend to overlook the implications of multidisciplinary collaboration, or at least this is the impression we have after so many years of analysis of how even talented students as the Alta Scuola Politecnica students are. So for us, it is interesting, I mean, not just to improve our education, but even to understand better what might be the frontier of design research towards a proper collaboration between people with different background. And I would say nowadays it becomes relevant also in the perspective of collaborating with some artificial intelligence, whatever we call it. Second, there are a lot of experiment in engineering education, in design education, involving multidisciplinary design and project-based learning. But so far, as I know, there are no standard programs. I mean, real multidisciplinary curricula, which are intrinsically multidisciplinary and prepared for multidisciplinary design, are typically honors programs. They are not really established program offered in a regular and consolidated curriculum, not even ours, which is an honor program, of course. So in this perspective, it is interesting to understand what are the factors that influence the activity. Now, a little bit of clarification. I'm referring to multidisciplinarity, which means studying the subject with multiple disciplines involved. I'm not talking about interdisciplinarity or transdisciplinarity. I mean, our students, we made experience is when we put students from different backgrounds working together. And the goal is to gain common understanding of phenomena from different standpoints, which is totally different with respect to, let me say, developing interdisciplinary competence or being able to, let me say, to unify knowledge into one setting. How we developed the study? Well, the idea was to compare what happens in multidisciplinary teams against monodisciplinary teams. Typically, we know that multidisciplinary teams have several advantages, among which diversity of design thinking approaches, and typically it is also claimed to enhance the creativity of the outcomes. Of course, the challenges are that differences in knowledge might bring to misalignment, might bring to conflict in collaboration, and generally speaking, it requires proper management skills of the design process. Monodisciplinary teams, of course, can rely on the expertise of a specific field, and it is way easier to find a common understanding within the team. However, of course, the perspective is way more narrow and more likely to be, let me say, biased or constrained by the perspective of the background, so not favoring an out-of-the-box thinking. So in this perspective, we want to understand how does it change the quality of the teamwork when we compare a monodisciplinary team with a multidisciplinary team, where quality of teamwork here, it is referred as a mix of social related and task related factors. Social related such as mutual support, effort, cohesion, and task related as the communication on the specific topic, the coordination of the activities, the balance of the contribution. So the point is to understand how these factors affect the quality of the outcome, and generally speaking, what should be done to optimize the quality in a team. So we define some research questions related to, eliciting those social and task-related dimensions of design teamwork quality in these two different situations of multi and monodisciplinary courses. The second question is about the differences in these two situations. So not just eliciting the aspects, but also how do they perform, what are the differences, and generally speaking, how these results can make us reflect on how to extend the frontiers of design, at least in education, but probably not only. So How did we develop the study? We used the Alta Scuola course as a reference multidisciplinary course. At the same time, I used one of my courses, mono-disciplinary, just mechanical engineering student. And the teacher is the same. The kind of project is to a certain extent the same. And so we wanted to compare the behavior of the teams in these two different situations. How it was done, not by observation, but with semi-structured interviews at the end, since it was right after COVID, so the students had worked together before COVID. The interviews we did then during COVID time, and so we organized 13 online interviews, 60 minutes each, and we used, of course, the transcriptions of the recordings and the related segmentations to make the analysis I'm going to describe. Now, I already introduced the Alta Scuola, so I won't give you again the details of the Alta Scuola. The mechanical engineering study, the course was from the mechanical engineering study program. So again, it is comparable with the Alta Scuola in terms of number of credits, in terms of the teacher, in terms of the kind of project. So, we thought it was quite, let me say, an interesting point. You know already the Alta Scuola project. These are the kind of project in the mechanical engineering course I'm referring as a monodisciplinary reference. And this is about the design of a wearable haptic device. This is a development of an integrated system for the regulation of running pipe pressure. So of course they are a bit more oriented toward mechanical engineering, but also in this case there are, let me say, several quite complex factors that make it comparable. What did we find? So as I mentioned, we wanted to explore this dimension of social related against task related factors. And of course, in the other direction, we have mono versus multidisciplinary factors. What did we find? So let me focus on the most important one. Some of them are kind of expected. In the identification of common goals for the design task, monodisciplinary teams find it easier to understand the goal, which does not mean that they properly understand the goal, but they find it easier to understanding together with, and this is what they report, right? Remember, these are interviews. The multidisciplinary teams, instead, they refer to, let me say, that some of the students perceive that some disciplines affect the goal. So they gain this awareness that having different disciplines involved have an impact on the interpretation of the goal of the project itself. So which is a quite more, I would say, interesting and sophisticated advancement. Some of them are obvious about design novelty, that monodisciplinary brings more inertia than diverse disciplines, so I will skip them. While it is interesting, the investigation of the task. The monodisciplinary team claim that they can go really in deep in the analysis. And well, this is understandable. I mean, because they all speak the same language and they can really go to the essence of the things. While the multidisciplinary teams revealed something that for us was a kind of unexpected insight. So what they say is that when you have to present to colleagues one possible solution, which is strongly related on your background and the others probably won't understand properly, you tend to simplify and to present among the different ideas that pop up to your mind, something that it is easier to explain, because then it will become more convincing. In other terms, what students often reported was that in order to be more convincing and for better communication, they tend to simplify the idea. And this can be a pro, but can be also cons, because they are under exploiting their competence at that point. And I mean, for me, this was definitely not expected. I'm happy to share the slides if you please. So you will find excerpts from the interviews that clarify how these let me say, conclusions were derived, and especially on the points that I was just highlighting. While I would like to go on the social related aspects, and again, I'm focusing more on some factors that are, let me say, somehow peculiar. So one is about the leadership. Monodisciplinary teams, since they start from the same range of competencies, the leadership emerged by self-confidence. So the students who are more self-confident tend to prevail and lead the team. In a multidisciplinary team, may be obvious, but the leadership is somehow associated to the proximity of the background of the team member to the specific task to be addressed. So the discipline defined, or better, the relevant discipline for a specific activity have an influence on the leadership of the activity itself. And overall, this was reported by architecture students and design students that this implied often that technical disciplines had the lead, and they were not happy for that. But this is, I mean, another, let me say, secondary observation, I would say. In terms of trust, there was, in both cases, mutual support, but only in the monodisciplinary team there was also trust in others in terms of let me say what they are saying, also for a better understanding probably. And again, you will find some excerpts from the interviews that can clarify the thing. So now getting closer to a conclusion, is since I'm already longer than expected. I think it is interesting to make these considerations. If we want to really create a multidisciplinary design education, so an education aimed at creating people that are not competent of all the disciplines that might be involved to address a challenge, but no, they are competent on a specific discipline, I mean, branch of engineering, design, architecture, others, but they are really able to collaborate. It is essential to learn how to define goals in a proper manner. Learn also that the way disciplines are interpreted have an impact on the definition of the goals of the project. And this is somehow dramatic, because if you don't properly balance the things, you might focus the group activity towards some goals which are not fully appropriate. Also, it is a matter of, let me say, create a proper mutual trust, because it is clear that not all participants, not all team members will be able to fully understand what others are proposing. And this has a very strong implication on what I was saying in terms of ability to discuss ideas, also being flexible in presenting something that others probably won't entirely understand, but without, let me say, under-exploiting your competence, but rather, let me say, trying to, I mean, of course, simplify when appropriate, but not go into simplistic solutions that are just easier to sell. And of course, it is extremely important to learn how to share disciplinary knowledge and methodologies. So even to explain to others, well, I use this method because this allows me to obtain this and that, even though others won't be able to apply or to fully grasp, but to have a proper reference on this. Well, I mean, just some disclaimer about the study. Clearly, we compare the multidisciplinary team against the mechanical engineering as a control group. This is a limitation. At the same time, mechanical engineering compared to others engineering branches is considered sufficiently, let me say, flexible and representative, but I mean, it is a limitation, no doubt. Another thing we should be aware is that the Alta Scuola students are kind of talented students, while the mechanical engineering course is just a regular course. So students are not fully comparable in terms of, let me say, profile. And the interviews were carried out online rather than face to face. So it might be that some nuances of the, let me say, the participants' comments were lost because despite we were very, let me say, careful in transcribing everything, of course, we might have lost something. So in terms of overall conclusion, there is indeed a kind of dichotomy between multi and monodisciplinary team working. There is a common belief that multidisciplinary is better, and to a certain extent, I mean, I agree and support the thing, but we tend to underestimate the criticalities behind multidisciplinary collaboration. I'm really interested in the topic. If we want, I mean, in this audience, discuss and reflect together what might be a proper development of a curriculum related to the, let me say, the definition of how to make students with different curricula collaborate, and actually this applies not just to students, but generally speaking to people from any team, and not just to technical schools, but also to other disciplines. I mean, nowadays it is extremely important to involve also people with backgrounds from sciences, from human sciences, and so forth. So that's it. Maybe just a couple of curiosity elements about my experience in Alta Scuola, apart from the specific study. We ask a lot to the students, but you can imagine that they are at the end happy of the experience because they really have opportunities that regular students don't have. Even managing the budget, I mean, it's the first time they have a budget to manage. So even these kind of things is nice. I wouldn't hide that they also have complaints because we challenge them out of the comfort zone because the workload is quite high, because sometimes the ambiguity of the project objective make them, let me say, iterate multiple times, but this is everything that contribute to their experience, I would say. Nowadays, the alumni of Alta Scuola are working in all sorts of organizations. Some of them created quite successful startup. They work all over the world. So, I mean, we are happy overall of this experience. Well, of course, again, here we are in the borderline because how much of the merit is the scuola, the Alta Scuola Politecnica, how much is the student talent? Probably both of them. But let me say, it is an interesting thing to develop, and what I can ensure is that the Alta Scuola students create a network that keep the relationship way more than typical alumni associations. They really keep maintaining the community, exchanging let me say, consulting, advices, and things. And among the other, they stay in contact with what we call the cucchiarella. I mean, at the end of each school, I provide them with an award. The award is this wooden spoon with the label of the year, and they are traveling with these objects around the world, and it is very, very funny. So, I mean, it is part of the community in the end. So that is from my side. Well, here, there. Sorry again for being a bit late. If you still have time, I'm super happy to discuss with you, to answer questions, or even to receive your suggestions and comments on how these reflections might be further developed. Thank you. Okay, I see there is a question here about the difference in creative capability in terms of quality of solutions between mono and multidisciplinary student teams. Very, very interesting and relevant question, Pradeep. Let me say that in this specific study, we did not compare the outcome of the design activity itself. Why? Because the project tasks were similar but not the same, and it was not really possible to make a straight comparison. However, let me add a few details that somehow sum up my, let me say, what I think I learned along all these years that I'm repeating this course now 12 years. I would say that multidisciplinary teams tend to produce concepts that more likely go, let me say, don't fall into a well-established paradigm. I mean, are more likely to be original. And another interesting thing is that they are more able to recognize risks of the solutions they propose. What I mean is that the richness of the multidisciplinarity allows them to recognize potential drawbacks from different perspectives. At the same time, they probably, because of also let me say, of time limitations or so forth, if they don't find one of the teammates who decide even autonomously to go very much in deep and maybe to develop a specific aspect of the solution also through other courses or through the regular master degree thesis, they remain more at kind of superficial level. So they are more able to identify risks from different perspectives, but they don't analyze to the maximum detail the let me say the criticalities behind the solution. While the monodisciplinary team are more likely to get fixated, definitely more likely to get fixated. But in a technical school with, let me say, very highly developed specialistic competencies, they sometimes are surprising because they develop some solutions that I don't hide, I will not be able to develop because they really learn some details from colleagues that that are not easy to master. So, I mean, they are extremely highly professional in developing these skills. So, in this sense, I would say that it would be interesting to, let me say, to develop this ability to make people with strong backgrounds from different disciplines to collaborate better, even more than having one individual which is able to work in different disciplines. Mm. It is a matter of exploiting to the maximum extent the individual knowledge. I know that the students have to think about the implications of their solutions for society and environment and so on. Do the students receive some social sciences training to think of these aspects? Some of them do. Very good questions also, this one, Aditi. Some of that do, meaning that engineering students, only if they choose, they attend some courses on, say, for instance, ethics of technologies or the like. While typically architecture students, some design students, and even some management in engineering students have at least some courses in the regular curriculum, not in the Alta Scuola, but in the regular curriculum. This is one of the competences they bring. So, and it is extremely important. I can say that apart from Alta Scuola, also the more traditional engineering study programs, like mechanical engineering, I would say it's one of the very typical. I mean, mechanical engineering is one of the study programs in Politecnico di Milano that was established since its foundation. Mechanical engineering, civil engineering, architecture, maybe. But nevertheless, also in mechanical engineering, we are observing that step by step there is a higher interest also in more let me say social and human sciences, even still at a reduced level. I see Srinivasan. Can you please share some challenges in teaching classes of multidisciplinary students? For instance, if you share an example of usage of a design method, would you show examples from as many disciplines as there are students in the class for good comprehension? Okay, well, I can tell you what sort of methods we introduce. Consider that, let me say, I mentioned that we introduce some tutorials that, again, do not propose let me say, the most advanced technique ever, but let me say, an example technique that could be taught in a relatively short term. So just to make an example, I mean, we start telling them to explore what are the relevant stakeholders in a certain problem, in a certain domain, based on the challenge they have to face with. And for instance, we introduce them to the personas models, which is a way, especially for those who never heard of it, it's a way to, let me say, to have a more comprehensive understanding of the different aspects to consider, because often engineers, they don't really imagine all the different dimensions, especially the non-technical ones. Then we teach them how to represent all the emerging needs, requirements into conceptual maps. And personally, I like to introduce them to conceptual maps based on problems and what we call partial solutions. So to see the dynamics of the co-evolution of problems and partial solutions in a design process. Even though, I mean, it is very limited, when they have to compare different ideas, we teach them fundamentals of, let me say, comparing solutions such as the PUG matrix, which is just to give them the understanding that all the possible tasks, all the possible activities within a complex design process could be driven by some methodological approach and not just by the intuition and the talent of the people. Then the examples, no, we don't provide specific examples. We just let them apply those suggested methods and tools and techniques in their project. And we make our tutoring. So, I mean, there is an important part of the tutoring. And this is why we have such a residential week where we, at the beginning of the yearly project, we stay together for 1 week with them so that we can monitor what they're doing. We can provide them immediate feedback, even though they are just addressing part of the task, but they can understand what are the implications of applying certain tools in a certain situation. But we do it directly on the multidisciplinary projects and not individually.
I have a quick remark for you, Gaetano. I don't teach anymore. You know, I'm rather sad I don't. But besides that, I was teaching a product design course, which was a cross-university course. So we did have students from English, in the sense technical writing students, and other humanities students. And we have some evaluations which we did at that point in time. And something that came out which was very interesting was, in many projects the English students became the project leader very quickly, because documentation of engineering, as you know very well, is the most critical part. So they became the coordinator of documentation. In fact, they knew more than the individual students overall. And it's quite fascinating to find how humanities students get involved in ways you don't imagine. And to your point about including them, really transforms the dynamics. And
Yeah.
also we found combination of gender and other compositions in the group, because we experimented with group dynamics in terms of group composition, and using Briggs-Meyer test to find the right kind of combinations. That also provided a certain kind of incentive both to the students and for us to observe that new kinds of interactions happen when you include humanities students. So I just thought I'll make a remark along those lines. We published some papers long time ago, but now that I don't teach, I don't have that course is continuing, but run by other people. And
Yeah.
really, the talk you gave is really excellent, because I think not only do we need to develop courses, we also need to develop reflections and evaluation integral to the way courses are taught. And your point, the other point you made of interacting with public agencies, local societies, addressing their problem, working with companies. I think this provides a certain, we also did the same thing. In fact, sometimes we would take a project on campus which the students can solve amongst themselves. We had only about 40 students, not 150, and it was a single course. And what is interesting, we found, is there is a certain new kind of interest in engineering that comes uh, to bear in many of these students, because they see their relationship to the real world in a more direct fashion. And I presume you would have observed similar things in your Alta Scuola.
Yeah. Thank you, Sub. Concerning what you said related to the language of students, if they are, let me say, native speakers or not, it affects their potential leadership. That's true. I would say that not in all stages. I
Mhm.
mean, when you're dealing with a one-year project, you realize that students who learn to respect each other because they realize the different competences that other brings, they also, and this is quite interesting, they also adapt to shifting leadership.
Yes.
So it is not necessarily true that the same person will be the leader from the beginning to the end.
Hmm.
I'm talking not about 1 week. In 1 week, it is likely that, I mean, there is one who
Yeah, yeah.
pulls the thread for everyone. I mean, for the entire week. But on a 1 year, for different reasons, because let me say that the tricky part of the challenge shifts from one discipline to another, or because I mean, we again request them to be on schedule with all the exams with a proper average grade, and so it also happens that they have other duties. So they are also very smart in, let me say, adapting to these situations and making it possible that the overall team advances even when one or two of them are doing something else and they're not really participating. But it is a part of the experience in the end. I mean, and so this is very interesting. Unfortunately, we have not been able to expand the model to non-technical schools. I mean, we made an attempt to invite few students from non-technical universities to join the team, but for, I would say, to be honest, more political reasons, it didn't work. Political means that I won't hide that, I mean, this is a trick for Politecnico di Milano and Politecnico di Torino to attract good students.
Hmm.
So other universities are concerned in allowing their students to participate in these initiatives are concerned that they might be somehow, let me say, that we might want to take their students from their study programs. And this is not my intention. My intention was really to have more multidisciplinary teams with different backgrounds, but the reaction was more, no, no, it's better. No, I mean, I understood that there was some things behind.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? Sudhir or Sham, I got cut off for a little bit in between. So
yeah, one question, Gaetano. Thank you for your talk and the time you have taken. One question is, did you try this model at the undergraduate level? Or
No,
how do you
not
see this? If do you see the same model working at an undergraduate level?
Also, this is a very good point. No, to be honest, we have not tested it with undergraded, but I would also say that undergraded, in my mind, have a different meaning in different countries, more than master degree students. I mean, for us, the undergraduates are, first of all, 3-year cycles, not more. And it is really creating the basis of the let me say the discipline knowledge. I mean, just to mention my studies, I studied in what in Italy we call Liceo Classico. So I studied Latin, ancient Greek, philosophy, history, just a little bit of mathematics, a little bit of physics, a little bit of chemistry, and nothing else. I mean, of course, Italian, but not even English. So just to say that the bachelor in that case is meant to really to create and nothing about technology, nothing about sciences. So for our organization of the bachelor, I think it would be too early because I mean, what we have done is involving third-year students in some projects, but not really multidisciplinary as a teams. But it is an interesting reflection to make whether it could be beneficial to start earlier because so that they learn better how to let me say to interact.
just to add to what you said, we did our course for undergraduates, not for masters. Basically, the final years, the last 2 years, anybody could join, but the courses would run every semester. Some of the project would even transcend beyond a single semester. That's why documentation and handover became very critical. So I think some of what you have done could be interesting to see how we can transfer some of those things into the undergraduate level on the side. I don't know. We have to think about those kind of issues very much so in terms of applying many of the things you have done. Are there any questions? Otherwise, we can bring it to a close. Thank you very much, Gaetano, for doing this. And you are always welcome to give any additional lectures you want to give. It would be nice if you think you can give a lecture on the methods and of reflection and evaluation of how the program proceeds. That could be useful to a lot of people in the audience as well. So maybe I'll
Mention the next talk. Mention the next talk, please.
yeah, I'm going to do that. So we'll do that. The next talk is by Professor Johan Malmqvist from Chalmers University, Sweden, and he will be talking about CDIO, which is Conceive, Design, Implement, Operate initiative, which has been running for a long time, over 10 years. He was one of the co-founders, and he will talk about the engineering education model that have been developed by CDIO initiative and has been adopted by a large number of universities in the world. They also have a book to go with it, and he will be talking on the 31st of July, and I hope many of you can join. With that, I'll bring the session to close. And thank you, Gaetano. And it's always a pleasure to see you and hear you.
My pleasure, Sub, and everyone. Sub, I will send you the slide.
Yes.
Feel free to share them with all colleagues.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.